Hi, everyone. Welcome to Research America. I'm your host, Ohene-Opare, and thank you for joining me each week as we mend the fabric of our nation, one story, one thread at a time. For our episode today, I'd like to welcome our guest, Athena, for being part of our journey and also sharing his story with us. So let's dive in. Hi, Athena. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing well as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. And
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to start with a simple question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into political commentary.
Yeah. So I actually went to college for political science, criminal justice. And I went for a couple of years, unfortunately had to drop out for personal reasons, but I plan on finishing that degree soon. But with that background and my knowledge, I really wanted to do something with my life in that realm. Never thought it would be commentary. To be completely frank, I thought it was going to be a police officer or a lawyer. Never thought it would just be commentary, but I personally think it's important for its own reasons,
Mhm.
um, especially with social media ever growing every single day. So now, I want to say November, yeah, it was the night after the election when I saw people behaving very nasty to each other over the election, cutting off friends and family members. I took a step back. I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is crazy. This is crazy. To cut off your mother of 42 years over a vote is just unheard of, and it's unthinkable. It's unfathomable." So I made a video on my TikTok. At that point, had only had a few thousand followers, and I made a video talking about just that, kind of ranting about how I felt. That blew up, and how many months is it since November? Little over,
We're
maybe
going to
seven.
our 10th month
10th month,
or
yeah. And
11th month, I guess.
yeah, and in that time I've gained hundreds of thousands of followers because I think from what I've gathered in my comments, people can resonate. And especially right now, it's so challenging to come out as a conservative in the first place, let alone post and talk about it. So I kind of just take the hit for everyone. But I love it. So yeah, just political commentary. Me and my husband are focusing on growing a family. We just moved, so a lot of new, different trials and tribulations, but it's all been incredible. And social media has been my primary focus recently.
That's good to know. That's good to know. So, did you grow up? Or where did you grow up? What area
I
of the
actually
country?
grew up, yeah, I grew up in New Jersey, which is a very blue area. So, of
Hmm.
course, I was conditioned to being blue. It was just the right thing to do. That's what you're taught in school by everyone. Um, so that was my entire life. Well, I was raised by conservative parents, so I was able to combat it a little bit. But once I got to the age where I started paying attention a little bit more to politics, I definitely leaned blue, like in the high school years. And then college I went to is a notoriously liberal college.
Hmm.
And it was in that college that I noticed I was getting different treatment than the liberal kids because I wasn't totally liberal. Um, I stepped back. I was like, okay, this is a bit of a problem for me. The empaths are actually some of the meanest people I've ever met. So I took a step back, went full blown conservative in that step back, and now here I am. I actually love to talk about. I try to utilize my platform quite often to talk about why I left the left, and honestly, how the left could be better. And I think that kind of shows, right? I have my flaws. Every single day, I do. I sin. I do the wrong thing sometimes. But I think it goes to show that the left uses their platform to tear down Republicans, and there are a lot of Republicans like myself who use their platform to actually try to help the left and say, listen, this is where you're going wrong. Listen to us. Stop villainizing us. Can we please work together where we do agree? And they are allergic to any of it, all of it. So that's something that I really like to do as well.
And this really dovetails into our conversation today.
Yeah.
So I wrote an article this past week, and the article is available on willfulpositivity.com. So if you're not subscribed to willfulpositivity.com, please go there and subscribe and support the show. So the article was called When Foundations Fail. And the premise of the article, no pun intended, was for us to begin to look at the premises that we build our entire identity on.
Right.
And so basically, what I wanted to express in that article was this idea that the foundation of all our political identities are built on certain premises. And if those premises are wrong, or if those premises are not properly founded, then it completely controls every other thing that we do with respect to our ideology, our actions, our thoughts, how we relate to other people, and so on and so forth. So when you look into our country today, you see a lot of factions. And a lot of these factions, when you really get to the root of it, you can understand that they're working off of certain premises,
Right.
right? So there is, for instance, the America is built on racism premise,
Right.
right? That's a premise that right now is animating a lot of people on the left.
Right.
There is also the premise of our founders being, racists, people, and white supremacists, and that premise completely colors a whole bunch of people and their perspective on America.
Right.
We have a premise around Republicans, for instance. There is this premise that Republicans are fueled by hatred and bigotry.
Right.
And that premise completely changes how people look at us, how people treat us, whether they consider us as potential partners for legislation, and so on and so forth. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You talked about your transition from the left. What were some of those premises that you had when you were on the left, and how did you begin to kind of unravel those premises and recognize that you needed to change them in order to embrace something that was more productive for you?
Yeah. By the way, it was an incredible article. I had so much fun reading it. So yeah, if you guys have not read it, definitely go read it. When I was on the left, I remember all the time, and we even see it today. This is 10 years ago, and it's still happening today. There's this huge premise. It's built that it's morally sound, it's morally correct to be on the left. And if you are anything but a leftist, you are not in line with the correct set of morals and values. It's just the right thing to do. It's the right way to be. It's just basic human decency. We see that thrown around all the time. And it was the same way 10 years ago. It really hasn't changed. That was around the time that I was a leftist. So of course, hearing that, you're a 15-year-old girl, you have no idea who you want to be in the world. You're trying to find your place, trying to make friends. You have a bunch of people telling you this way is the right way. It is the morally sound way. You're not a nice person if you're not this way. Of course, I'm going to go that way. It sounds like I was very easily manipulated at my own fault, and I was. And because when you're 15, you want to be a good person. Like you don't want to not stick to the status quo. The whole part of being a kid is like trying to fit in. It's the worst part, but it's the biggest part. So trying to fit in not only high school and college was majorly important to me, especially as a girl. So when you factor in that everyone's saying, listen, it's just the right thing to do morally, it's built on that premise. Like you said, that it's just not, there's no option as good as this one morally as a person. You're morally bankrupt if you are not far left, if you do not, conform to ideologies that you really can't understand, that aren't real, right? You have to lie to yourself what reality is just to, spare the feelings of the smallest population on the planet. Um, and I didn't see that as manipulation, but as an adult, I mean, holy heck, you can. And I think that's where conservatives get that premise of like they're built on hate. For a lot of us, it's just built on reality. We're not willing to lie. We're not willing to give certain minorities the benefit of the doubt because they did something bad because of the color of their skin. This is reality. If you murder someone, you go to prison. That's reality. Reality is a man cannot put on a wig and be called ma'am. That's not reality. It's just simply not. You can't have 10 million illegal immigrants flood into this country and not want to deport them, you know, because then that would make you just a racist, fascist Nazi. That's not reality. We can't house 10 million people we don't know. So that that premise, it's definitely based on just be a good person, keep your head down, don't ask questions, be inclusive. But the left has become so inclusive that they're now completely exclusive, and anyone that isn't perfectly in line, they are completely intolerant to. And then in the same breath call themselves the party of tolerance. And this is what I was noticing at 16, 17, and I still notice it today. And again, I try to utilize my platform to explain that to them. And more than most of the time, they won't even respond to those videos, because what are they going to say if they can't self-reflect? They just ignore it, which is fine. But every other video, if I make a video complimenting President Trump, they're all over it. If I make a video giving key points with evidence as to why their party is failing, they have nothing to say. They're intolerant.
It is so true. And recently I've posted a couple of videos and the responses have been quite interesting. So a couple of days ago, I posted a video showing some college students who were being asked very basic questions. One of the questions that they were asked was, if I say I am a 7-year-old, and this was like the person interviewing them was definitely over 40. And this person says, if I say I'm a 7-year-old, what do you say to that? And the instinct of these people, the natural instinct was to say, I'm not going to believe you. But
Right.
then you could immediately see the shift. Like as soon as they said that, something in their brains, gave them a little shove that says, that's intolerant. And so
Yeah.
then they began to change their answer. But if you feel this way and that's how your mind is and so on, then and as long as you're not hurting anyone, and then the guy raised the ante a little bit and he said, "What if I wanted to enroll in a first grade class because I said I was 7 years old?"
Yeah.
And I was expecting people to say, "Absolutely not." Right? But
Yeah.
then you saw that same thing. The premises took over, and immediately they were like, "Well, if you maybe you missed first grade and you still need to go to first grade, then." And
Unbelievable.
I don't have a lot of hair, but I wanted to pull my hair out
It's
because I was like,
unbelievable.
"This is simple. If
Yeah.
you cannot answer these simple questions, how can we expect you to be the future leaders of this country? What is our moral clarity going to look like in
Yeah.
the next 2 decades when these people become, in charge of our country? When you
Yeah.
cannot look at reality and say this is right and this is wrong. Now, I
Yeah.
don't want to give the impression that this only exists on the left, right?
Right. It absolutely exists
Have
on
you
the.
noticed any false premises on the part of the right?
Oh yeah, I see, and these are people that I don't associate myself with, and I'm sure you don't either. We're two pretty sound people, I'd like to say. But you always see the term. I mean, I don't know what I can and cannot say on here, but you see the term libtard a lot. A lot of right wingers throw that out to anyone that's on the left, and this could be someone who has the same partial degree that I do. They took the same courses, the same classes. We're equal on the education playing field. Um, you're not automatically, a libtard just because you're on the left. I know so, and I follow them because I really like to keep an open mind and a different point of
Mhm.
view. I do follow a few Democrats that are obviously like rational and present good content. Um, and to see that in their comments blows my mind, because I'll watch their videos, and although I don't agree ideologically, nothing they're saying is wrong. They researched, they presented it well, they thought about it thoroughly, they presented a really clear, concise argument. Nothing about this says you're incapable of doing this further. Where is that comment coming from? And it's just the premise of, for some conservatives, if you're a liberal, you're just inherently dumb. You have no idea what you're talking about. And I completely disagree with that. I think a lot of liberals are coming from a very good place. I think a lot of them are coming from a very educated place. The reason that they're not focused on reality the way that we are is because they're so consumed with validating people. And that's not an inherently bad thing, but it can and does cause damage long term, right? When you're
Exactly.
telling a 40-year-old man he can be a 6-year-old, that's a problem. Objectively, there's no if and or about it. And like you said, they'll try to warp their brain to fit it because they don't want to hurt his feelings. If you have to make that kind of effort to not hurt one person you don't know's feelings, you're a pretty good person. Okay? Odds are you're a good person. But are you actually helping? Are you being helpful? Are you being productive to that person? Okay? Sometimes yes, feelings are valid. Feelings are always valid, but they're not always rational. And I think that the left has completely forgotten that. And that's where the right tries to come in and explain it. And then when we get called things, then we call things
You
and
get the
vice
back and
versa.
forth.
And this is where we start to just decay our brains. But yeah, I definitely see it on the right every single day. And those are people that I either block or unfollow if I see it because I don't think that's, I mean, listen, I'm not perfect. I've definitely said things on my TikTok towards the left that I'm not proud of. And I repent and I always get on and apologize when I'm more sound. Politics brings out a very passionate, driven side
Hmm.
of a lot of people. And that's not an excuse, but it's just a reason. But I always retract. I always reflect on my account. I posted a video a couple weeks ago talking about how I just wasn't proud of my page because I felt like I was going in a very nasty direction. I took a few days to step back, clear my thoughts, talk to Jesus Christ, say what, ask him, what do you want me to do with this platform? It's not for hate. It's not to put people down. Use me, utilize this platform to say what you want to say. And it's changed since then a lot. It's way more respectful, it's way more peaceful. Not to say it's still not passionate, but yeah, so I definitely see it on the right. People on the right need to also take a step back sometimes, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And the way that I have approached this is I have always said I came to America as a missionary.
Right.
And the job of a missionary is to find common ground and then build from that point. So when I would go door to door and I would knock somebody's door, the first thing I would ask them is, do you believe in God? And if they said yes, then I knew immediately we had something to build off of, right?
Okay.
And then we would start from there and I would share a message with them. And what I have been telling people on the right, as much as I can, is to say, what is the goal? What is your goal? Is
Right.
your goal to win arguments or is your goal to change hearts?
Right.
And depending on which path you choose, it completely defines exactly the foundation of all your comments, the foundation of all your behaviors, and
Yeah.
so on. So, yes, I do cringe when I see a lot of that on the right because people also feel a little self righteous on the right because they feel that they're right. And I
Right.
get that you may be built on a more solid foundation intellectually or ideologically. But if your goal is to make people feel down, feel dumb, and the way that I've represented it is I've said, if you whack people on the head with the truth, all
Mhm.
they will feel is the pain and not the truth,
Right.
right? And so we can't just go about whacking people on the head with what we think is the truth. And one of the things that we need to be very aware of is the fact that a lot of people have transitioned over the last few years. A
Right.
lot of people have had their eyes opened and they're shifting. But one of the trends that I'm seeing is that even though they're shifting, many of them can't get themselves to the point of identifying themselves as being on the right
Right.
because of the abuse in some cases that they may have experienced while
Right.
they are on the left from
Right.
people on the right. And so
And
the
the
challenge
premise.
exactly. And the challenge becomes that we've gotten to a point where there is no longer any moral conviction.
Right.
And so a lot of people say, I am in the center. And I get that you can have centrist views as a political ideology, but now I feel like there are people who would say, my eyes are opened, I understand, I see reality now, and I see that just coddling people is not the way to go. And I can't identify myself as a Republican because this and that, right? And so
Especially
they
when you
have the
have,
values, but they can't join the movement
right.
because of the branding that have been attached to us, right?
Especially with President Trump, right? Because they have, this is his premise that he's a racist, fascist, authoritarian. Um, Obviously, someone that still holds those same moral values but sees reality intellectually, they're going to be like, oh, well, no, I'm just in the middle. I see both sides. And listen, independent or in the middle, like a centrist, those are, like you said, valid ideologies. Okay. There are times where I see the Democrat Party present a bill and I'm like, listen, I can get behind that. Like, okay, cool. If it's grounded in reality and it's grounded in something that's long-term productive, what's the problem? What's the problem? Um, However, like you said, a lot of people use that as a cop out because they are too afraid to be, like you said, branded under that premise with fellow Republicans or President Trump. It took me months on my page to admit that I supported President Trump because I didn't at first. Okay. He wasn't
Mhm.
my favorite person. Um, but after a few months, I did start to support him. And I didn't tell anyone up until months after I had started. And really think about that. I have to, in a free country, on my platform, on the phone that I pay for, I have to hide the fact that I support the current sitting president that wouldn't have won without the majority vote. It's unbelievable how conditioned we are to be afraid of ourselves. Why? Why? Because of the media, because of these premises that people put out for us. Well, if you like Trump, then you're a racist fascist. What about me? Can you give me one example of something that I've ever done or said that makes me racist or makes me sound fascist? That I want to control everyone and run this like 1940s Germany. Give me one example. Because I said I don't want an open border because I don't want to spend $1 million on transgender surgeries because I'm pro-life. I believe in protecting all human life. Yes, that includes after birth. Let's fix up the foster care system. Let's fix up the adoption system. Okay, I'm with you on that. These things are what make me a racist fascist. How do you get there? It's the branding. It's that ideological branding of like fiery stone in your brain that no matter what comes out, if that background noise is bad, like if you present, let's say I present you this pen, but you just read an article about how, some pens have a recall on them for giving poisoning through the skin, right? This pen could be perfectly safe, but you know you're gonna second guess it because some of the pens gave other people poisoning. When you have a preconception, it's going to ruin your view of everything about it. So when everyone has this preconception on the left of Trump being a racist, fascist Nazi, no Republican that supports him is going to look sound to you. Even though, yeah, he can be blunt and at times insane. Not all of us are like that. I am, but not everyone. You're not. I am, but you're not. You can't make those preconceptions about people simply because of the person they vote for or the things that they support. Not every person, not every being is the same. So it's crazy.
Yep. And one of the things that um, when I think about premises and the foundations they create,
Hmm.
it's premises become the foundations for propaganda, right?
Absolutely.
Because this is a challenge that a lot of people who want to control a mass movement, this is the challenge that they face. The
Yep.
challenge is that um, I don't have time to meet everybody individually, explain to them the validity of my ideology, how it works in real life, but I need their support right now. Okay, so I need to find a shortcut. What is that shortcut going to be? Do I say the nuanced thing? Do I say, hey, I don't agree with Trump on certain things, but there are certain things that are true.
Yeah.
And overall, I feel the bad outweighs the good, and therefore I'm asking you to support me because I think I can do it a little better. That's a nuanced conversation. That
Right.
requires more time, that requires more, energy, it requires more investment.
Right.
And unfortunately, I don't have that time. Our campaign seasons are protracted and we need to get information out there. So what do? I come up with a premise. I attach that premise to the thing that I hate.
Right.
And then once I attach that premise does the heavy lifting for me, right?
Absolutely.
It becomes the shortcut that actually buys me allegiance without actually having to convert the hearts of people. And so
Right.
when you get to the point where you are asking people, why do you feel this way? Right? Why do you feel this way? Just think about the fact that you can take the words, make America great again, and have a premise built around those words to get people to act like crazy people because they saw a person with a hat with
Right.
make America great again in America.
Right.
Think about that. How much did they basically skip over the nuance, skip over the logic, skip over all sorts of, um, I would say, all sorts of barriers of sanity to get to the point where they are completely, basically, missiles that can be manipulated and pointed at any target. And
Right.
so this is it's very interesting how the embrace of false premises is getting us to the point where we don't see the humanity any longer on the
Right.
other side. So let's jump to a couple of other thoughts that I would like to get your mind on.
Yeah.
Um, so, were there moments in your journey where you realized that you personally had mistaken assumptions or blind spots that you've had to challenge?
Yeah. I kind of touched on it before, but a few weeks ago, and I really like what you said earlier, and I think that's going to stay with me for the rest of time. When you said, "Do you want to win arguments or do you want to change hearts?" I noticed my platform morphed into a place that was just about winning the argument, winning the logic argument, winning the political argument, winning the evidence argument. And I beat you, so you don't have the right to speak on politics. I became that. And I really started to hear that it was actually the week that Charlie was killed. I reflected on my account because I was like, is this an account that, because me and you have both worked with Turning Point, I looked back at it and I was like, is this an account he would be proud of? Is this an account that Jesus would be proud of? Is this an account that my fellow Christians are going to be proud of? Every single answer led to no. Every single one. And so I had to really rewire my brain and into remembering, why did I start doing this in the first place? To change hearts, not win the argument, not be the best, not be the smartest, but to be able to admit when I'm wrong, to be able to step out of the conversation when, listen, I'm not well versed enough in this. I think social media has made us lose the graces of common decency and human decency when it comes to things, and just intellectualism, right? If
Mm-hmm.
if if you start talking about something that I have, let's say cars, you start talking about cars. I don't know jack about cars. I know nothing. Absolutely, I know I have one. I know it's expensive. That's about it. You start talking about parts and stuff, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost the art, especially on social media and how prevalent it is today. We've lost the art of being able to say, listen, I don't know enough about this. Can I get back to you? I don't know enough about this. I'm not comfortable speaking about it. Everyone needs to be smart in everything they talk about. Otherwise, their vote isn't valid to anyone else. And that's something that I lost sight of. So I wanted to be the best and tear people down to be that best. What is that achieving besides mass hatred in me, in other people watching me, people getting fearful to ask me questions? You know, what I love about my page is that people say, hey, can you touch on this? Can you talk about that? Even on the left. I don't want to lose that part of my account. This is the dialogue that Charlie always spoke about, right? That dialogue. Once you stop having that dialogue, we're toast. So I was jeopardizing that dialogue because I wanted to be the best and win. So, but being aggressive in all my videos wasn't going to make anyone be like, can you touch on this? They're afraid of me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not something I was okay with. Once I really realized what I had become and what the page had become, so I
Yeah.
had to break a lot of chains to get back into reality. Even just breaking the chains of the fact that I was from New Jersey, a very liberal area. I had to unlearn everything I ever knew, everything. I mean, my dad is the whole reason I love politics the way that I do is my father. He's got an eidetic memory. He can read. He'll remember it the rest of his life. He's the most intelligent human being I've ever met. There's no one smarter. Um, and so learning from him has been such a privilege. But he's the same way. It's such a beautiful thing because he's way more mature about it than me. He loves to debate. He loves to argue. So he's the same exact way. But he was never forceful with me about politics. That's the beautiful thing about him as a father is that he never said, because I'm raising you in a Christian conservative household, you have to stay Christian conservative forever. You are still your own woman. You're a beautiful young woman. You're going to choose your own path. You're going to go off to college, find out who you are, probably find a man. You are free to live that life. Just remember reality while you're doing it. Um, so I had to really unlearn everything I learned out in that real life. That was very liberal in a blue city, in a blue state, with a blue mayor, blue governor, blue college, blue high school. Um, it was hard, definitely hard. And then to come out of those things and only a few years later run a conservative commentary account. I mean, people from my hometown would send me my videos like, hey, love your videos. And I'm like, wait, you're a conservative? Like, where have you been? We never talked about this. And all of a sudden, all of my family and friends are just conservative. And I'm like, why didn't we
Wow.
speak? Like, but this is the exact point. Conservatives are afraid because then all of a sudden, a lot of kids that I went to high school, middle school, college with were actually on the right. And I'm like, you mean to tell me that I thought I was alone this whole time? There's hundreds of you. And no one says anything. It's this
Yeah.
conditioning. Crazy. So I had to unlearn that.
Awesome. So when I think about my personal journey into this commentary space, one of the things that I started feeling over time was I would listen to these commentators, and they were eloquent, and they would bring the receipts, and they would show us the proof, and so on. But the thing that I could never answer was, what do I do with this? Right? So I would end an episode of a podcast, and I would be feeling this, feeling of, rage or seething. It was like, wow, I didn't realize they did this, and so on and so forth. And something has been exposed. And I always ask myself, what do I do with this? Like, I feel this, visceral feeling, but I don't have any outlet for it.
Right.
Right. And so when I started my platform, the reason I called it willful positivity is because my belief was that at the end of every conversation, we needed to leave as friends and not as enemies. Right. And that is my goal, is if I can make it a goal to leave every conversation as a friend and not as an enemy, then my hope is to leave people with a sense of, what do I do next? What do
Right.
I do next is to love my neighbor. What do I do next is to serve my friends. What do I do next is to hug the person who needs to be hugged, right? I want to leave you with a positive impression on your heart, such that when you look in the world, you see the world as problems you can fix rather
Right.
than problems that have to be solved for you,
Right.
right? And that is what I hope to get other people to realize, who are also creating content, is that yes, you may feel that you are justified, but if you are a God-fearing and Christ-loving person, remember this: Christ never said that by their creeds ye shall know them.
Right.
What he said was, by their fruit ye shall know them. So what is our fruit? What are we putting out into the world? Are we putting out bitter fruit that even those who like us hate the fruit,
Right.
right? Or are we putting out the truth, which is inherently sweet to those who embrace it, right?
Right.
And so, um, I look at the world as a place where, our part in the world is to participate in spreading as much light as we can. And recently I said something that really resonated with some people. I said, if you wake up in the morning and you feel a sense of darkness around you, maybe it is because it is your turn to bring the light,
I love that.
right? Maybe it's your turn today to go into the world and bring the light. And so I remember when there was a flood in Texas, and I went online and I was just shocked to hear people mocking dead children because that area voted for Trump. And
Unbelievable.
and I was filled with so much rage.
I
And
was
then
too.
just before I was about to post a video, and as I was recording the video, I asked myself, because I'd clipped all these, clips of people celebrating or at least mocking the death of these children. And I had an impression that said, what are you doing? Like, you are just going to add on to the hate. So yes, there's someone who woke up this morning who, woke up in a neutral state. Now you're going to show them all these clips, and where do you leave them at the end of the day?
Right.
You're leaving them in a state of hatred for another group of people, right? And so I changed my approach, and I said, rather than focus on the people who are vile, why not focus on the people who are suffering,
Right.
right? Let's focus on the people who need the help. And I'm going to take a quick liberty here to just share a little story that I heard as a youth that really kind of shaped my perspective on this. It's a story about a group of a scout troop that went hiking. And as they were going hiking, they had a good time. But as they were coming down the mountain, one of the kids was not watching. One of the kids was not watching, and he was bit by a snake. And they still had many miles to go to get down the mountain, and they had a choice to make. Okay, so one person said, let's take him down the mountain. Another person said, let's find the snake and kill it. And they decided to focus on finding the snake, to kill it. And yes,
Yeah.
they found the snake. Yes, they killed the snake. But then by the time they came back to the boy who was suffering, it was too late. And this seems like a kind of morbid, tragic story. And if you remember Aesop's fables from back in the day, it's to teach a moral lesson,
Yeah.
right? Yes, the snake had wronged you, right? Wronged
Right.
you. The snake had done something that you thought was unforgivable. It had bitten this innocent boy,
Right.
right? And you wanted to exact revenge on that snake, but you forgot what was most important, which is saving the life of the person who was suffering right next to you. And
Right.
so that's the perspective I think we need to realize, that yes, we will have opportunities where we will win the argument if we go and debate and make a fool out of someone. But then what does it earn you,
Right.
right?
Who is
What
it
does it
helping?
earn you at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're approaching the end of our discussion, and I wanted to ask a couple of kind of final questions for you.
Yeah.
Um, First one, what does it mean for people of diverse viewpoints to still belong to the same civic space, even when we disagree strongly?
What does it mean? I
How
mean,
can we belong to the same civic space, even when we disagree strongly?
I think it's honestly exactly what you were saying, focusing on humanity rather than being right, focusing on the fact that the person that you're talking to isn't just a voter or a vote. They are a person with a family, with friends, with a career, with a loved one. I think just remembering that there's not, there are things outside of politics. I think a huge misconception is that everything is political. And yeah, you could probably, this is a, when you paint a picture and you want things to fit into that picture, you can, right? If you want a shoe to fit, you will make it fit. Um, Sometimes it doesn't have to, though. Like sometimes it can fit another shoe. Not everything needs to be political. Um, so I think, especially on the left, but it happens on the right too, um, when they hear that someone is MAGA or just a President Trump supporter or voter, or just a Republican, you, like we've been talking about this whole time, there's this automatic preconception that they are going to somehow be intolerant to you if you have diverse thoughts. Um, and that's just for most sound people. Listen, and on both sides, it's normally not the case. It's not the case. Um, so I think just focusing on the humanity rather than the politics all the time, even as political commentators, it's important to take steps back and make sure that we are creating a diverse setting where any and all feel welcome. And, whether that's sexuality, race, gender, ideologies, voter registration, doesn't matter. All of our differences, the one thing we can all agree on is the fact that if all of us get cut, we are all bleeding the same red. We are bleeding the same blood. It is the same color. That is key because, like the Texas floods, people saying, oh, well, those kids deserved it because their parents voted red. How do you lose humanity that badly? How do you go, how far gone do you have to be to say something like that? Where we are forgetting the basis of politics, which is humanity. We are forgetting the basis of our existence, which is humanity. We have to keep having conversations. Charlie Kirk, that was his entire life's work, is keeping the conversation. When you stop having conversations, violence ensues. You are no longer human to each other. Marriages end, cities collapse, wars start. We need to keep talking. We need to keep listening. I think listening is more important than talking, and not listening to hear, actually listening to learn. I think people are very intolerant to that now because even on both sides, they are so based in their beliefs that they are intolerant to hearing anything else that might challenge that. So I'm not actually going to hear you to learn. I'm just going to listen so I can rebuttal. Don't listen to argue, listen to learn. We've lost that. And I think that is what's going to get us back to a place where we can just talk.
I know. Isn't that isn't that I mean, when you think about it, that's all it comes down to
Yeah.
is, can we just talk, right?
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
we just talk? No preconceived notions. Can we just have a
Yeah.
discussion, right? And not put all these barriers in front of us, and just have a conversation. Because
Yeah.
fundamentally, when push comes to shove, I believe, and this is my personal take on the world, we agree on nearly everything.
Mhm.
Think about it. We agree that road rage is bad. We agree that we should eat healthy. We agree that we should love our neighbors. We agree on so many things. But because of these false premises that have become idols, we
Right.
put all our reason aside and we end up in a place where reason cannot find any space,
Right.
right? And
Mhm.
so, as we end, I'll give you the last word on this. If you could guide your audience to one shift in mindset, what would that be?
Wow. I think it would be not to stoop down to the levels that we spend time on social media condemning, right? So a lot of the time on conservative pages, we talk about condemn, behaviors we condemn on the left, and vice versa. The left does it to the right. I've noticed, like, if someone makes a video attacking me, right? A leftist comes at me in a debunk video or something. My followers are so incredible. They'll go to that person's comment section and DMs and like take care of it in like a social justice way. Like, how dare you mess with like our, Athena? They're my friends. Like my followers are my friends, so I love them for it, and I would do the same for them. I do the same for them. Someone just came after my two friends, Megan and Savannah, and my friend Jeff, and I made a whole video. She wasn't even directing the video at me, and I still, talk back. But it would be, let's let's show them why we can be bigger than this. Let's be bigger than this. If we're going to preach about being grown adults rooted in reality, why are we stooping down to middle school drama? Why are we stooping down to high school bully behavior? Um, let's be better. Let's show them that we can be better. And I need to work on being the leader of that and practicing what I preach. If I don't want my followers doing that, or Republicans doing that in general. I can't do that. I have to work on my aggressive tactics, my sometimes unwillingness to have open and honest communication in a civil, productive way. That would be how I would want to guide my audience a little bit. It's let's show them exactly what I built this platform just to talk about. Let's be bigger, let's be better, let's be productive, let's get something done. Unlike the Democrat Party in Congress, right? Like these Democrats are getting nothing
Hmm.
done. Their whole platform is anti-Trump. What do you have to offer? What, because Trump's going to leave in 3 years. What are you left with? What are you doing that isn't just fighting Trump? What can you give people? They don't have it. They don't have a platform because they hate the guy so much. So their whole platform is them. Let's be better than them. Let's talk about policy. Let's talk about productivity. Let's talk about objectivity. Let's talk about these studies, statistics, reality. Let's talk about these things instead of feeding into the little petty drama that, in 2 months' time isn't going to matter, let alone 5 years. That's how I would want to guide my page.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us
you.
today. This has been an awesome conversation, and
I've loved it.
I am excited that we were able to meet. And I didn't say this in the beginning, but Athena and I met at Charlie Kirk's last major event, which was the Student Action Summit. And we were friends on social media before that, and we had the opportunity to meet in person at that event. And so, um, thank you for coming. This conversation are the kinds of conversations that we need if we want to restitch America, right?
Yeah.
That's the goal. Is
Yeah.
let's bring our country back together. And so, for all of you, Athena, will you tell us where people can find you if they want to follow your work?
Yeah. Instagram is at Athena's Chats. And then my TikTok is the real Athena K. Usually my Instagram, I just make a TikTok video and then I'll upload it to Instagram for those who don't use TikTok. But yeah, you can really find me at either of those. This has been so much fun. I really am grateful that we set this up. It was an incredible conversation. Like you said, sometimes um, even within our own party, we need to have uncomfortable conversations or comfortable conversations, but important conversations because even in your own party, you can lose sight of each other a little bit. We have some extremists and people that are unwilling to actually sit and be rational because they are also fueled by hate. So this has just been incredible. And it was so nice meeting you in person. And it's so good to see you again now.
All right. Thanks, everyone. So, this is the end of our episode today. Thank you so much for joining us on Restitch America. We hope to see you next week. If you're not following us, go to willfulpositivity.com to subscribe to receive updates from us every single day. Thank you very much.